Okay, this is part 3 of the video on solar power home solar power systems. Now, for me, this is by far the most important part. In this part of the video, I'm going to walk through, and I've done it elsewhere, but this time, for once, I'm going to try to do it slowly. And I've come to some conclusions about how to compute a balance of the battery, the charge and the discharge rate, and how to make it so it will work in different situations. Okay. Uh, what I suggest is getting, just like we have it with funding in project finance, a uses and sources of energy. Okay. And obviously, this should just be uses of energy. And we have to understand in solar power, again and again and again and again, I can't stop saying this. We have to understand a pattern, and I guess I'll even do this little gimmick thing. We have to understand that how much demand you have. As this is especially if it's going to be a microgrid and you're not going to have any dispatchable backup kind of capacity. Okay, I just put an insert and a spark line to get that. When are we going to use the energy? That's the first part. And a lot of this video is going to be about making it really kind of flexible and saying, oh, what happens if we put some different kind of bulbs in with different kind of patterns? What happens to the efficiency and the cost effectiveness of a battery? And then the next thing, I do not understand. Again, let me go backwards. When you do this, I was thinking maybe we could just throw in 5 hours of storage. Maybe we could just kind of vaguely say, if you've got lights and a battery, we need to use the lights for 5 hours, so we need the 5 hours of storage. It just doesn't work that way because solar is still a non-dispatchable renewable energy. And obviously, I am not anti-solar, any silly thing like that. I hope you say I'm just being realistic. And there's no way to not incorporate, put a little spark line in there again, how much uh, uh, solar we have. And then if we're going to use the solar to charge our battery, perhaps I made a little mistake here. If we're going to use our solar power to charge our battery, then we can figure out how much, I'm going to go through this slowly, by the way, how much surplus we have and how much deficit we have. And when do we really start charging our battery? And the reason to do that, I thought maybe I'm full of crap. I really did. I thought, there must be a way to do this. You don't really have to do this. You do not have to reorder hours. That can't be right. Now, I suppose if you had every single hour of the year, you could just start with the first hour and then keep a tabulation of the battery. But if we're just doing kind of typical days, which I am going to do, then you have to see when are we starting to charge the battery. And it never works perfect. It might not work really perfectly because I charge it here and then I have to use it. So we're going to have a negative balance in the battery, which happens a lot to me, I think. And we're going to have to figure what's going on there. I want to figure out reorder the timeline. You have to reorder the timeline, and when you reorder the timeline, start with when you're going to start charging the battery. Should we start our timeline and start our battery tabulation in hour 5 in this case, or in hour 7? And that's kind of sad. Maybe I should have changed the bulbs here or something like that, and then it's really, excuse me. here's where I start charging. I start charging in this case in hour 8. Okay, and then I take this hour 8 and just go kind of crazy with a lookup function and keep our battery charged and figure out how much I have to charge the battery, and then eventually get the balance of the battery and see if we're using it all up, or if we in this case, I have a little extra, okay? And then figure out by the end how much energy we can actually use. Now, what I did here is, whoops, I said, different different systems have different characteristics in terms of the capacity of battery, and we need different kind of sources of energy. I'm going to go crazy again on this sources and uses of energy. But sometimes we might not be able to meet our demand. And guess what? A gigantic electricity company, EDF in France, they're a gigantic electricity, and they have to do the same thing. We have one little light bulb or a gigantic electricity. Here's how much energy we have coming in, we have for demand, and here's how much we have of supply. And if our demand exceeds the supply, we have to cut the use of energy. We can have a rolling blackout, we can change the voltage, we can interrupt interruptible customers, we can consumers. I hate calling them customers. We can do that. Now, when we do that, we can see in this case, I tried to resolve a circular reference. This was kind of crap. And in this case, we had 25% unserved energy. Because I put more demand in, and in this case, we had 39% unserved energy. And so on and so forth. And this unserved energy, then we can say, well, when we're doing our valuation, the last time I said, oh no, we're going to use the battery capacity. And that's our use, okay? But if you have less solar power, if you have a different kind of hour, this is going to give me a different hour of solar power. Now I'm going to go through another video. Then we get different amounts of energy that we can actually use. I think this discharge amount is the amount of energy. That's not quite right. Yeah, it is. The amount of energy we have to actually use. Actually, I'm going around with myself just a little bit, because we might have some energy that's coincident with the solar that we get straight from the solar that we don't have to charge. We'll kind of go through. Don't use the battery form. Okay. I've got to be careful with that. So now what I'm going to do, you could stop here. You could take this file and find my mistakes, which I've probably made. And then you can say, well, here's how much, this is the percent served. This is the total demand. And the unserved energy is the amount that we want to use minus the amount that we can actually get from the battery. And I should be really careful about this, and I'll do some tests. Let me just, now I've even started putting this in my kind of website. Well, it's really a website. I said, well, we've got to start with kind of our chronological demand. And then after that, oops, I went too far down. Okay, and I'm going to after I make this video, this is how I kind of do it. I'm going to put the file up here, of course, so you can get it. And then I started talking about the rest of this, and then I'm going to put, well, we're going to start with that, and then we have to see how much of our demand we really get from solar, and that's still chronological. And then we put compute, well, it's still, I called it chronological, starting with hour zero. We put that in, and then we have to reorder. And that one reorder had a little bit of a trick. That reorder, I'm almost happy that happened. It's not always really obvious. Sometimes it might be the second hour of charging, sometimes might be the first. I don't know if you remember what I just showed you. And finally, we're going to see how much unserved energy we really have. So let me go through now some of the technical parts of this. And what I started with is we have all our home systems. This is like, pretend we're some gigantic utility, some distribution utility that serves the city of Paris. Or let's take Prague. Okay, and when we serve this city, there are some people who want to turn their lights on, and some people who want to charge their phones, and some people who want to watch television, and some people who have a refrigerator, and you can put all these uses in. Now, when I look at some of these microgrid analyses, some of them are just horrible in terms of being transparent and structured. It's difficult. You're really essentially modeling a whole a utility company. Okay, and when we do this, you see here's what people do. They work through different appliances, and I did not realize what they're really doing, and I'm really sorry about this. But they put each hour. And if you notice, in all of these things, there's not one single thing that has a number that's greater than 1. And what they're doing is essentially computing a load factor by hour for each appliance. A load factor is like a capacity factor, but it's demand instead of supply. It's the average load divided by the maximum load you could put on the system. So for any of these appliances, the maximum load is 1. That's the most you can put on a system. And then if you put 0.29, for some reason they put bulbs as being on half the time and off half the time in other rooms, and then they put the charger as being fully charging for these hours, and you could argue what hours are correct, but you're just putting the percentage of the capacity of the unit. So in a television, we're watching it for 14% of the time, I suppose, and then we're having our television on for, on average, half the time, or not on average really, and then we always have it on between 16 and 17 hours. I don't know why, from 4 to 5. There must be a good television program or something like that on. And we can do that for all sorts of different appliances. And then if you notice what a kWh is, I almost want to put a kWh, W capitalized, is equal to a H, which this is what we did, the H, times the watt. And what we then do is, to get our final number, we take some patterns like this and we multiply it by some load. Now, this happens to be there, but it's not really relevant because I'm only using these patterns. And what I'm going to do is say for different products, so this is, I'm going to go through, we're going to put different kind of appliances, how many hours they're used, and then I'm going to put the kilowatts in. And I suppose I could multiply the kilowatts times the hours and get the kilowatt hours for the day you're using, but that's going to be a little different because it's not different, it's just that we're going to put that in our sources and uses of energy. And then I'm going to need a little match function, and I'm going to use the match and the index. Not always the lookup. Sometimes you have to use match and index. And I think this is a case. I could almost use the lookup. Who cares? Oh my God. And then I'm going to put a second code number in. And what I did over here, okay, so you have these things, and part of this is I hope if you ever do this, you're experiencing the same kind of thing as I did. Oh my God, they have all these hour by hour things, and what should I do with these hour by hour things? I put there's the I'm gonna have to pause and find another file since so this is some UNDP thing. Again, I'm going kind of. They structured this as going from hour 1 to hour 24. Good, 24 hours in a day, except a couple days. And they say this lamp is only going to be used for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, and that affects the battery analysis. And then they said the outside one is for 5 hours, and then you only use your television for 3 hours, and you use it all. Notice that they didn't have any percentages. They always kind of just had ones and zeros. Okay, and the one I looked at had some percentages because the television is not on all the time. Only 3 hours. Good for them for not being watching too much of this. Okay, I hope they don't watch my videos for more than 1 minute. Okay, now that would be a real waste. Oh, I don't want to cause global warming because of that. The okay, so we have that. Now let's continue with just technically what to do with all of this. So I put this load pattern in here, and we could put databases of 1,000 different profiles and everything else. And then I just made a count. I can just select this Alt-EIS, enter it, see how fast that is. Oh, cool. And then, so we have 33 different possible uses. And all I did, of course, was here, made a little drop-down box and took all those uses and made a little code number. And then over here, I did the same thing. Now I repeated that. I right-clicked and get all of the total uses. That's in this thing here. And then I said, okay, the product's down here. And this time that's in this file, AE3. And that's AE3 is right here. Okay, and later I put it up here, so it was a little bit inconsistent, so whatever. And if I change this, let's say it's a bulb in another room. And then I put a little, of course, insert. I didn't put that here. I inserted those, I'm kind of liking those spark lines, not as much as these things, but I'm kind of liking that for all this. And then now we're using a different pattern. It sounds like I might have to take a break from this video and get a glass of water. Now, then I'm going to need this match. This match just gives me, again, that's why I moan about merging. Ooh, I hate merge cells. If you want this all this match does is it gives you the row number. Perhaps I should put the row number here as the match. And this code is up here, the appliance, or I'll pull it the demand code. Okay, and then now once you have that code, well, then I use lookup because I just said take this 3 and just go to the energy balance and look up 3 right here. Look up this 3, and then once you look up this 3, take this number, this number, this number, blah 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 blah. Okay, and then oops, now I took yes, and there were 5 hours in this thing. Is that right? No, 5 hours right here. This is the sum function. Good. Oh, I was terrified just now. Okay. And then I entered the kilowatts. This is a bulbs. How much of a bulb? This is the capacity in an instant. kW, no H. This is how much power it draws in maybe, I don't know how to really express that now that I know a volt and an amp hour and all that stuff. Oh, shoot. And then I do the same thing over here. So I said we could have multiple different uses. And in this case, I said we need 5 kilowatts. What the heck am I doing? Oh my God. Okay. Oh, geez. I'm sorry about this. Oh my gosh, I'm too used to kilowatts. Sorry about that. I'm glad you helped me find this. Finally. And this is total watts. Okay. This is the total watts of usage. Now, we know that the total capacity of our battery from probably STC, I'm saying probably, it doesn't say STC on there, our capacity is 5. Maybe if we never used this 5 watts for our smartphone at the same time we used our 6 watts. There's no way we can possibly use 6 watts. I'm going to put 5 back here. There's no way we can use it. We're going to have to dim our lights. We know that. And I put this, whatever. I'm going to, okay. And I said as we get larger, maybe we'll get some more lights. And as we get really big, we'll use 20 watts of lights. Oh my gosh. Maybe we can get even larger. Now, this demand can maybe not be met. But what we need to do is once we put in this demand, the real lesson is to take this whole demand and get it to the point where we can take the demand and match it with all of our production. Okay? So, what we're going to do now is work through the demand part of this, and then I'm going to just assume a solar pattern. Okay, up here, if I change this around a little bit, look at this thing, then we get a little bit of a different solar pattern, and I'm going to talk about that a lot more in my next video of how do we realistically get that sort of data. Okay, but once we have this, first of all, I say, okay, well, this wasn't so hard. I'm going to take our use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said we had 5 uses from our different kind of products. And then I take the kilowatt hour of demand, okay, and I take that from the first demand thing here. This is our lighting, okay? And then I said, well, if this was, let's go and put it up to the first one, okay? And I just screwed up. Oh God, that was really horrible. Oh, I am so embarrassed. And that has to come from the index function down here because this index function is the whole business. That's what I wanted to emphasize. I just about messed up again. This index function just allows you to select one thing out of the database. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have all of these things. Now, we don't have any fans, TVs, or refrigerators for this little bitty thing. And what up here, it says the solar capacity of 5, the battery capacity is 18.5. Again, that just comes from down here when we evaluated the product, each product, how much battery amp hours you have, what's the voltage, what's the total battery watt hours. Now, this is going to get a little bit dicey, maybe dicey, whatever word that means. It means like I don't know what the hell's going on. We might not really have this. We might have to reduce this because there's a depth of discharge and there's, who knows if they're really measuring the input or the output. If this is the output, the discharge, then we're okay. The total demand, again, that comes from number 30. Control square bracket F5. That's the, oops. What did I take there? Just a minute. Another mistake. The total demand better come. Oh, was I drinking too much when I made this? Oh my gosh. That's this one. That's the total demand. Oops. Excuse me. In what hours? This should have been oh, I'm gonna pause here. Excuse me. What I did is just made a little calculation. I took watts times the hours. I made a little mistake here too. These uh, these watts times these hours, these watts times these hours, these watts times these hours, and added the whole thing across. Okay, and then that's the total amount of energy we use. And then this, of course, is the index function that just says take the whichever product or home solar system, solar home solar power system we use, or whatever. I have to be careful not to call it a solar system, I think. And then now we can put this total demand into it. So right now we have battery capacity of this isn't very good, is it? Of 18 and a half, and we're trying to use 55 watt hours now. Did I? It sounds so crazy. I wonder if I did something wrong. Well, we don't come close to some of these. Obviously, we can't meet the demand. Okay, and what maybe I should have done is, well, maybe if the battery charges and discharges, and we have a bunch of solar left, maybe somehow we can do it. But I'm not going to worry too much about it because we'll just have unserved energy, and then we'll at the end of the day we'll see, okay, we have battery capacity of 18.5. We wanted to use 55, and at the end of the day this says we could actually produce 22, which is more than our battery capacity, which means we have a discharge and a charge maybe. Let's just see if I'm all the mistakes I've made, okay? But I hope you're not all angry with me because, I make mistakes, but well, I make them all the time. Oh God, do I make them in my life? Okay, so we have our smartphone and our other energy used, and this correctly says that we're going to use this much energy. Now, I got a little flustered here. To do this, you use the index function. This 9, everything comes from the 30. This 9 comes from down here. This is the match. Remember I said there was a match. The way the match works is it takes, I probably said it already, it takes the code number. No, I don't think I did. It says take the code number, go to load in column F, and match that. And all you do then is if you take the entire column, it gives you the row number. In fact, I think I did this. So this is row number 9. So if we look at row number 9, this is the bulbs for the other rooms. Okay. By the way, if I want to change this and make it bulbs for the living room, then I get 50. If I make it a bulb for the kitchen, then I get 40, because we're just not switching the bulbs on and off as much as we did. So I'm trying to show you how to make this kind of a little bit of more flexible analysis. Now, this is what I'm afraid of, and it's going to be another long video, and this time I'm not quite as worried about it. I put up here a solar pattern. Now that comes from another sheet, and I'm going to go through that sheet. And I hope you're saying, oh my God, evaluating a simple little, a simple little single solar system is not that easy. Okay, and I stuck it up here near the titles. I almost need to move these at least up one. Okay, so this is the percentage of the capacity, and you never ever get up to 100% capacity because the solar capacity is measured at standard testing conditions, and maybe it's not a really sunny day, or maybe it's a place where you'll never get up to this, or maybe you get it up to that level just for one day. So this is the capacity factor, the percent of the maximum capacity that we get from our solar panels in each hour. And this is pretty good. This is pretty good, and I don't know what's happening here. I hope I didn't get it off by one. It looks like it might be off by one because, well, at 10 o'clock, 11, then it goes down a little. Okay. And we'll have another whole video on how to get these numbers. Okay. And then I say, okay, well, now we've got this, no, I'm going to keep going. Now we've got this amount of solar being produced, and this amount of solar being produced is equal to the solar, I hope, this is the solar capacity, and I just was a little bit not very good and not very transparent, apparently. So this is the solar. I think I'm going to move this over here and call this capacity in watts. And I hope I didn't call it kW again. And I did. God, do I have problems here? You shouldn't be watching these things. This is the maximum watts and the maximum watt hour. And this is the energy in watt hours. Okay, good. God. Now, so what I do is simply multiply this thing up here with the F4, obviously, and multiply that by the percentage of the capacity that we can use. That's that capacity factor. That's why that has to be expressed as a capacity factor. Now, the next thing I said is okay, whoops, the round trip efficiency. I made a little, oh, I just entered that, didn't I? I just said there's a round trip efficiency. I should put a little spinner box on that. That means if we charge the battery with solar, we don't get as much in the discharge as we charged it for. And that's related to, I almost, whenever you have a capacity, the capacity should be measured at the discharge rate, not the charge rate. I put all this crap in the website because I was kind of confused. And as to how do you, if we're really careful with capacity, is it charge or discharge? It's a discharge. And we might have to, because we have a loss here, we might have to charge it more than we discharge it. So the amount of solar we actually get and can use is only 90% of the charge. Okay, and then I use a maximum and minimum. And this is the, I think maybe, I'm not sure. I don't know what your philosophy on this is, but we measure, this is the maximum amount of solar. We never got our whole 5 kW because we never got up to 550 kilowatts. And this is it. And I almost would love to put the capacity factor here, but I wasted this with this column over here. I don't know what to do. Oh no. But if we take this and divide it by 24 and then divide it by our 5, that's our capacity factor for the day. Okay. I don't know. That's really not very good, but I'm just going to do that to remind myself of what it is. Okay. Now, so what we're doing is we're saying, well, it's surplus when the amount, now I made an adjustment here, which is actually not necessary. Okay. But this is how much we want. And this is how much usable solar we have. So when we have more solar, when the blue little thing is greater than the red one, we have a surplus. Net solar versus demand, surplus. Net solar versus demand, deficit. Okay, and we're now the in this case, when it's a deficit, that means we want to use this much, but we have no solar. So we need whatever. We have a deficit. We better have our battery charged in order to get this. Now, if you do this sort of analysis, your battery isn't charged yet. Okay, and I really wish, now I'm kind of hoping we could find the other one. I'm gonna put this up. So in this case, we had a deficit here, and then after that, we start to have a surplus. But that's not the one I was worried about. I'm gonna keep going up. Ooh, they're all the same, aren't they? I think we're okay. I'm just gonna, what I'm worried about is this is tiny little bit positive, and then this is negative. I wonder if I could put some different uh, bulbs in. Okay, and then different. See the surplus and the deficit. And you know what I better do? I'm going to get this true false colored, but I better tell you what it is first. And so far, what this also shows you is that here's our surplus and here's our deficit. We know we're not going to be able to meet this demand. There's no way. We're going to have a 24 deficit, but our 24 deficit might not exactly be that. In this case, it was, because as we go through the charging and the discharging, it might not be exactly the same. So I'm going to do this. So I think doing something like this is really a good kind of first step. And do we want to color the top? No, let's not do that. Okay, that's a big decision. Okay. What happened here? Was there a little thing here? Okay. And so now I can see when we start charging. Now here's what I want to do. I want to make a tabulation of the battery starting in this hour and see as we get around for 24 hours whether I can still meet this demand from the battery. I know I cannot because we're going to run out. But I want to start with the charging and then end with this, and that's why I was worried about it going up and down and up and down. So what I did here, and there might be a very sophisticated way of doing this. I haven't moaned about this yet, but people try to make these really fancy dispatch things and all this. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the first time we hit a true, the first column we hit a true, and if you put a 0 on the match like this, and if you just type in the word true, or if in Germany it's wahr, right? And then you find the first time it hits true, and that's in column 15. And then of course you use the index together with the match, and you say, well, I'm going to go up to line number 12, which I'm not even showing you. In line number 12, that's our original kind of hour by hour stuff, our original hours. And I'm going to go up to line number 12, and I just missed where I was. And I'm going to say, when is that the 15th column? Not row, not 15 with the numbers. When's that the 15th column? And it correctly said, that's the 5th hour. And I think this was pretty bad. And I think I should put the Alt WFF again. Okay. And I think that we can then start in the 5th hour. Now, in the 5th hour, then you just go crazy with the lookup. You say, this is the 5th hour. And you're going to look up this and then look up on this entire row and then take the demand for the 5th hour, which should be 22. Okay. And so I said, no. The demand for the 5th hour, look up this one and look to find where it's 5, and then look in column 20, row 23. And I was wrong. The row 23 is 0, and the next one after that 750, 750, and then 0. That's the lookup, and you go crazy and crazy with the lookup. I'm more convinced the older I get, and the more Excel I do, and the more I waste my life with Excel, the more I'm convinced you need index and lookup, and maybe a little bit of a match, and maybe a little bit of a sum if, and that's it. And wasting your time with all these other things is a ridiculous waste. And then you do the same thing, but look up on row number 26. I'm looking at the last row on here, and then I'm going to see, well, how much solar do I have? And then I'm even going to make my little adjustment. Here I made it differently. I made it differently. And then I subtract this. And that's how much I can charge my battery from. Whoops. Sorry about that. So the net charge is just this. Sorry, it doesn't have a demand in it. And then I go to my battery balance. And the first part is easy. The opening balance is the closing balance. We do this with debt all the time. And then you charge it from this. Or I could just charge it from this, couldn't I? Okay. And then you say, well, okay, how much do I have in my battery from charging it, from the opening balance versus this? And then I see, well, here, my battery, the capacity of this battery was 480. And why don't we go to the very, very first one, which I was a little worried about? This battery capacity was 18. And if we get in this subtotal to more than 18, which I don't get, but it's possible that we get, and I'm not going to go through each, well, I'll go through a few different ones. It's possible that we're trying to put more into the battery than we actually have. That didn't work for any of these. Okay? And so I say, well, okay, then we put our discharge, and the discharge comes from row number 21. And row number 21 is the total demand. I just should call this the total load. Okay? And which we're just going to use what we have in the battery to discharge. Now, I suppose if your battery was not, the one thing I'm a little bit worried about is if your battery was not discharged. If your battery was not discharged, I mean, was not full, and here, in this case, we still had some battery capacity. If we pretend there was some solar capacity in year 4, or we didn't have enough battery capacity, it is possible that we could have met the load from the solar, and we shouldn't put our constraint in. But for now, I'm just going to leave that because that seems to not ever occur. So we see what's in, because of the way I arrange things, we see what's in our battery, and the only way we can use the load is from the battery. And that might be very realistic from these kind of battery systems. So I'm gonna leave that. And then I put a minimum function around it because I said, look, if our battery if our battery is totally used, and I made an error just now. I did make an error, and it's so helpful to go through these videos. Subtotal after. Now I'm starting to believe in putting these subtotals in the opening and closing, and that I do because of these U.S. tax law things. So after battery limit, capacity limit. Who cares if it's a long title right now, right? And that's just this minus this. And I didn't even explain what I did with this one because there was no limit being hit. Okay, but it's possible that if you have a whole really, really good solar thing, and the battery is not very big, then you might reach a limit. And the way I said this limit is we can never have more battery capacity than we can never take more out of the battery than we have the load. And then I said, okay, well, take the minimum of what's left in the battery. That's what I should have done. And or the amount of load. And if you're just using the battery, that's all you can do. Now, maybe I was kind of right. Maybe it was if you get so much solar. Let's do a couple of experiments, and I'm going to have to switch off pause the thing just for a minute, and I'm getting close to being finished anyway. Okay, I took a little bit of a break, and I think I'm going to finish this video right now. Now, I'm going to go to our energy balance calculation one more time and talk about a couple of hypothetical things and a couple of things I've kind of fixed. And again, these energy balances you can work through. You could even work through how many cycles you have to go through. You could even work through, whatever. Some days you might not use the battery and all this. I put in a subtotal. I've already talked about this. I haven't talked about this limit. When this charge, when this amount inside the battery, this is like I keep on talking about a battery project like one of these water coolers. This is the amount. We can't fill it up more than its capacity, and we have to limit it. And if we have too much solar, it's possible that could exceed the limit. I'm going to do that in a minute. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it right now. So here I have a blue number. Let's say that we have a massive amount of solar capacity compared to the battery. It's totally possible. We just have a few more panels. In this case, we have all of this solar capacity, and then we reach a limit. Up here, we say this is the amount we can charge our battery, and then we have a second, we put a limit, and our limit is the amount this minus this. So this is this number minus that, and it could be negative, so we have to put a maximum of 0 in. And then and then the actual amount you have in the battery is this much. So what happened is you weren't able to use this solar capacity. Basically, you wasted this solar energy because you couldn't put it in the battery, and you didn't need it for the demand. I'm just, now I've done this battery stuff a number of times, not 1,000 times, not even 100, but I've done it a few times, and it always seems to come up with the same thing. You have to reorder. You have to compute your battery balance, and maybe I'm doing it not exactly right and all this. Now, there's one more thing. Let's say in period 10, for some reason, what could we have in period 10? We have something that uses a whole lot of electricity. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. What could it be? I really don't know what would suddenly use a whole bunch of electricity. Whatever. Not a television. I'm sure you can think of something good. So I'm going to put 40 watts. Oh my gosh. It's like nothing. Okay. And then, so suddenly we use 40 watts. It moved it over here. Of course, I've got to remember to undo this. Now, if we need 40 watts in this hour, then we're going to we can get a charge from the solar of 21. So now we're going to charge our solar, and we're going to put a limit on our battery. We can only use 19, and then we've run our battery down. We've filled our battery up, and our closing balance is we took 18 out of the uh, 18 out of the battery. We took the whole amount out of the battery because we have 40 and we want to use 19. I think that's not so unclear, but maybe it would be nicer to even uh, uh, present it a little bit better. Now, but we had 40. Now, if you have some sort of appliance that can be directly a DC kind of fan or something like that that can directly be connected to the solar, maybe it's not because you don't have a separate inverter. But let's say you had a separate inverter and directly attached to the solar, it would be possible to say, I can use the demand minus the the energy from the battery. Okay, and we could even put a maximum of this or 0. Okay, and then our total load served is the amount we took out of the battery plus this, and the amount of unserved load is just this total, the load up here, the load way upstairs here, minus the load we're able to serve. Okay, so that's that. I'm going, no, let me do that now. So what the rest of this little video, I'm going to put a couple of little graphs, okay? Oh, God. Okay, up here I've got a graph of the solar energy versus the load. And then I've got a graph of the solar profile. That's kind of okay. I'm gonna make this graph. I think we better redo this little graph. So let's put the net solar. We probably should put the net solar. That's after the that round trip efficiency business. Okay, and I think it's probably best to do it before the reordering. Okay. And then next to that, we can put the load. And we can kind of see then, and again, this is before the reordering, so the load will kind of look nice. I mean, no, it won't look that nice. Come on. It will, in the middle of the day, we'll have solar. That's what I meant. Okay, and then when you make a graph, just remember this is the x-axis, and let's press alternate F1 to make a graph somewhere up here. And this is our kind of extreme situation. And maybe, why don't I put the graph down here? I'm having problems because, my father, he's a good guy. No, well, whatever. He's my father. And we have these people helping out of the house, and they basically are going to the big one, and we have this excess solar. And then let's do another graph. And really, what did I make this graph like? I think it did this look, maybe it made it made it a little bit better with a line. Okay, so let's change the chart type and make it a line graph. And I don't know why in the heck I'm wasting your time with that one. Okay, and of course I made it very extreme, and I'm gonna now redo this, and I'm also going to redo this one to put it back to 6.3, and now oh, good. Whatever that means, the load is going up at night. We have a little bit of load during the day, and that means we can charge less. Oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe they had a different one for different smartphones. What if this mobile charger? That made a pretty big difference, okay? And at the end of the day, when you change this, I'm kind of having fun with this crap. Radio charger. That was weird. When it depends on how you've structured the load, and let's put let's put a really big one in. Okay, and that one had some more coincident loads, but a lot of non-coincident loads too. So now let's make another one and just put the net charge and the discharge. That's going to be just our battery. And okay, I'm going to put my thing here. And then up here, the charge is up here. We have how much is charged. And then we have up here how much is discharged. Oof. What are we doing? Charging it and discharging it in the same thing? Oh, this is because, oh, shoot. Let's do this. I'm going to put equal lookup for the millionth time, and watch me get it wrong. I'm going to look up on this, but that's not a match, and I'm going to have to do it with, oh, come on, match that number down below with 37. 37 is the reordered hours. Okay, and then so now let's make a graph of this one, which shows the charge and the discharge. Okay, and alternate F1 again, and this time I'm going to stick it up here somewhere. Okay, whoops, oh, come on. Okay, and then I'm gonna kind of cut this out. Oh, come on. And then let's put this somewhere. Oh, I've got all these little things here, okay? And let's put this somewhere up here for a little while. So let's try some other things, and we can just kind of work through different ones, and they're charging and discharging. Now, a lot of this is because I used a mobile charger. If I make my second one another bulb, the first one was the bulb in the living room, right? And the next one is the bulb in other rooms. Now it gives me a very different start. I start charge and discharge there, and I must have used some, and so you can look at all of the kind of things and see how they charge and discharge the batteries, and that's what we'll put in the first kind of thing. Now, the very last thing to tell you, don't worry, that was scared me, okay. The very last thing to really tell you is I'm just enjoying this. Isn't this wonderful? When we finally make our financial assumptions, and do our financial analysis, up here, I put in the solar and the battery energy. This time, I'm going to put in the load served per day, and that load served per day comes from the thing we just did, and it comes from kind of down at the bottom, and maybe that's kind of bad that I didn't even put a sum in here. Right here, it'll come from this. I'm gonna have to go and do a sum. Okay, and I am kind of, no. And I'm almost analysis of something like this. Oh, look what we had to do. The good news is that if you make a microgrid, or you make a big area grid, or an island, or any kind of thing in your home, when you're adjusting the demand, you're going to have to do a lot of the same things to do a real analysis. And batteries seem to be a big deal. I hear politicians talking about them all the time, that they're going to change the earth, and I hope they really do. And I hope we can get this much more efficient. So down here, we're going to put energy. I want to put energy demanded and energy used. I might have to. Well, produced. Uh, so let's put this one here, and then we can also put in the kind of the. I suppose you can put in some sort of capacity factor, but I think it might be best just to kind of compare the energy that we're actually able to use here with the, in this case, that was pretty good. We used more. Oh, good for that. Okay. This time we had a whole lot less. And that's what you can do. And I think it's kind of good. Now, the one thing I really haven't done yet, and unfortunately, I really don't think we can avoid it. And now I'm introducing you to the next video, and I'm losing my voice because I got in all sorts of problems with my personal situation with my father. What we need to do now is understand that solar power we can't just take one single solar power. We're going to have to try this with a low day, a high day, and then take some kind of, with a summer season, a winter season. We're going to then have to take some sort of weighted average. Or if we got crazy, we could do this for 8, 7, 60 hours, but I don't feel like doing that. So we're going to have to take this and repeat this energy balance for about 4 or 8, at least maybe 8, or maybe 16 different sheets, or maybe put it all in this sheet. But we'll just have to do this with a low case, a high case. We could use a data table, but I hate that because then we'll have to lose our transparency and all that. So we'll put a low case and a low solar case and a high solar case. And I'm going to walk through how to kind of do that. And in the meantime, now when you get this file, you'll get it on the internet. If you've really made it through this whole video, you should get some kind of award, really, for having the effort, making the effort to listen to all of this, okay? And, okay, all right, we'll if you click on here, somewhere, if you just click on here, and you go to the home thing and put like 5 or something, it kind of fixes it. So that's the thing. You probably knew this, but I just found out by accident. So let's stop this video finally. Okay? And I'm happy to get this one finished.